Imagine you're reading a book. It's a real page-turner that's kept you on the edge of your seat for hours now, but it's about time you put it down. But what if, instead of just being able to leave a bookmark and close the book, marking your progress was more complex? What if there were designated points in a book where you could leave off? And if you closed the book without leaving a bookmark at one of those designated points, then your progress would be lost, and the memory of what you'd read would be gone. Of course, this idea of save points to mark progress in books is about as possible as this channel getting monetized. As with books and other media, such as TV, you can just put the thing down at any time and your progress is easily marked via bookmark or automatically marked by whatever streaming service you are using. This is part of why video games are such a different form of media and can offer such a different experience. The player has to save their game. With a video game, well, at least most video games, you have to save before you quit the game. Otherwise, all the precious progress you made today in Nekopara Catboy's Paradise will be gone.
Hey Connor, it's been a couple of hours. You doing okay?
Yeah, really intense league match, you know.
Doesn't really sound like it. I mean,
not what it looks like. It's for research for the video, you know.
You're such a degenerate.
Furthermore, what a save in a video game represents means so much more than what a folded page or a bookmark means. With books or movies, it's a more passive experience. I'm not saying that it's a worse experience, just that it's different. There's less control or agency as opposed to video games. In video games, you are a player, an active participant, while with TV or books, you are a reader or a viewer, a passive perceiver. There are some books and movies that are more interactive and allow the viewers some control, such as choose-your-own-adventure books or movies such as Bandersnatch. These are somewhat similar to the active participation that video games allow for. However, these experiences are far and few between in film and literature, and so video games are one of the most interactive forms of media. I am actively disappointing my parents when I play League of Legends.
Hey Connor, I'm hearing like a lot of clicking in there. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm watching.
What the fuck?
Get the fuck out of my line. Oh, it's for the video. It's research.
You're such a disappointment.
Thus, tracking progress is so much more important with video games, as it's tracking what you, the player, have accomplished. A save is representing and setting in stone the progress and choices you have made, as well as the setbacks you faced. So save systems are as integral as any other aspect in game design. Save systems in games started out rather simple, almost resembling bookmarks in some form. Some of the first save systems in games were password systems. Back in ye olden days, aka the early 80s, there wasn't dedicated space on consoles or game cartridges to hold save data. Thus, games such as Mega Man used passwords, which were strings of letters and or numbers that would contain information. So you'd reach the end of a stage, the game would show you a hardly legible Rosetta Stone that you would have to write down to input later, cause you can't keep playing because mom said it's my turn with the NES and I wanna play Bubble Bobble! These passwords varied from pretty simple to I cannot tell if that's 5 8s or if there's a B in there somewhere. They really weren't too different from cheat codes, as they basically just told the game to start from X level with X equipment and that these bosses were defeated. Eventually, games started coming with dedicated writable storage, and then consoles started having dedicated storage for save data. With this transition, the world of saving opened up. Now, instead of having to write down a grocery list to keep your progress, games could allow players to mark their progress more easily and in many other ways. And how a game allows a player or doesn't allow a player to track their progress vastly changes the player's experience. Celeste is a game about overcoming obstacles that may seem insurmountable, whether that be a big-ass mountain or big-ass anxiety. It's a challenging platformer. Each level is made up of many connected rooms, with 1 or 2 little platforming challenges in each room. The game autosaves whenever you enter a new room. So, if you die in a room, you just go right back to the start of the room. Now, you will die a lot, but these rooms are very small, and every time you make it to the next room, the game saves. So, you can put the game down at any time knowing any progress you've made has been marked. And thus, it makes the player feel more like they are making constant progress, making this mountainous goal feel more attainable and less overwhelming. It makes the main character Madeline's overwhelming anxiety feel easier to tackle as she's constantly making slow but steady progress. 1 step at a time is all you need. This game would be a vastly different experience if it only autosaved or allowed you to save at the end of a level. Instead of making constant little progress, you'd make progress left often, but in greater amounts. These are 2 vastly different experiences, and maybe one is better for some people, but not others. Similar to how the Souls games and their bonfire systems are not for everyone. Some people like certain experiences, and that's okay. Maybe someone likes sparse checkpoints as it makes finally getting to one all the more rewarding and relieving to them. Getting Over It is a sort of physics-based platformer that is also about overcoming overwhelming obstacles. However, unlike Celeste, there are no checkpoints at all, so you are at constant risk of losing progress. The only way to save is to make it to the top, or quit the game and it will pick up where you last left off. So, if you do quit the game, your progress is saved and you don't have to start all the way at the beginning, unless you quit at the beginning. But since there are no checkpoints, you could easily lose a lot of progress if you fall down when you play. And you will fall. And you cannot go back to prior saves. Every save overwrites the last, and every time the game closes, it saves. Thus, this game kind of feels like the opposite of Celeste, in a way. It feels like you're never making progress, and often even losing progress, as your progress is never marked unless you quit or beat the game. There's a reason that there are so many clips of YouTubers playing this game being so pissed off you'd think they're queuing up a ranked match in League.
What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Me? What am I doing with my life? I could be doing anything, but no!
I feel within
Oh my
me
God!
a peace
No!
above all
No!
earthly dignities,
No!
a still and quiet conscience.
This can feel like an incredibly infuriating experience, but also the most relieving experience when you do finally beat the game and your progress is set in stone. It tests your determination to pick yourself back up no matter how far you fall down, and eventually get over it. A lot of modern free-to-play games such as Fortnite don't have traditional save systems and ways to track progress. These types of games often mark your progress via a battle pass. You play a match and get some XP to progress the battle pass. Progressing the battle pass nets you various items and cosmetics you can use. When I say a battle pass is the equivalent of saving your game, some may look at me strange. They'll do that regardless, but my point is that they both track the player's progress in a game. Battle passes just do it very differently, because they're for very different types of games. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a very different game than Fortnite. Then again, I don't know what game is similar to Fortnite, let alone what the Fortnite is anymore. Anyway, Fortnite and other such games with battle passes would be different experiences if they tracked the player's progress in a different way, no? On the topic of Yakuza games, let's take a look at how that series of games' save system has evolved over the years. In the first couple games, such as Zero, how you would save is via payphones. Zero is the first canonical game in the mainline story, and is set in the late 1980s of Japan. Flash forward to a more recent game in the Yakuza series, Like a Dragon, which is mostly set in around 2019. In this age, cell phones are obviously very commonplace. Before, you had to save at a payphone, a designated spot. Now, you can use your cell phone to save, meaning you can save almost anywhere. Often, where you cannot save are dungeons because you cannot get a signal in them. However, dungeons often have payphones in them that you can use to save just like in the old days. I found this to be so cool because the Yakuza games are contextualizing saving in the world, and changing it with how the world changes. Saving is tied to phones, thus it changes with them. Roguelites and roguelikes are rather interesting in how they track progress. With roguelikes, you don't gain anything between runs. If you die during a run, then your progress is reset and you're right back to where you started with all that you gained gone. Like with Spelunky, you cannot save, and when you die, any sort of progress you gained is lost. When you die, you go right back to the beginning with nothing. Nothing except the knowledge you've gained. What's interesting is that your progress is not really marked unless you beat the game, as the game does not allow the player to save and death means losing everything. However, the player does mark their progress in an indirect way. With each run, the player's knowledge and skill increases. They learn more about the game and how it works, and more importantly, how to deal with that. For instance, when I first learned about the arrow traps in Spelunky, I figured anytime I went in front of one, it would fire at me. But later, I learned that they only fire once, when I walked by one that had already fired. What I also noticed when I first triggered the trap is that the trap was not first triggered by me, but by a damsel I threw in front of it. This is when I learned that traps trigger only once, but can also trigger via not just me, but by any sort of motion in front of them. This also got me to wonder, can I pick up and throw other things? And sure enough, I could. Then my strategy to get around traps switched from avoiding them or wasting bombs to destroy them, to picking up stones and such and throwing them at them to trigger them, so then I could safely walk by. Now I was conserving my bombs and using them for when I needed them more. This also got me wondering what more I could do with throwing stuff. Like if I threw stuff at enemies, would it hurt them? And if that was true, then that meant that I could handle my enemies more easily at a longer range rather than having to deal with them at a close range with my whip. Sure enough, it worked, and I was dealing with enemies much more easily and getting further in my runs. This is a progression that is not marked by the game with a save file. It's a progression that's marked by how much further the player makes it each run. You may start out not making it very far, but a couple runs later, you have a better understanding of the game and challenges you must face, and now you're making it much further. The game allows the player an experience where they can literally see their growth, because making it further has nothing to do with what the game gave them. It has to do with what they've learned and how they've adapted on their own. Roguelites are similar to roguelikes. However, they have meta progression, meaning some stuff does carry over or progress between runs. Let's take a look at an example. Heretic's Fork is a deck building and tower defense roguelite with a soundtrack that goes so hard it puts me into cardiac arrest. This doesn't really pertain to the video topic, but this game has a f***ing banger soundtrack. Here, just take a listen. Anyway, back to the actual video topic. Heretic's Fork is a roguelite. You play as an employee of Hell. At the start of your shift, you pick an employee and 2 starting structures. Each employee has their own perks and plays a little differently. The goal of the game is to make it through all circles of Hell on your shift, defending the gates from waves of sinners trying to escape. During the game, you play cards to do various things such as build and upgrade structures, increase the stats of your structures, and activate certain abilities and powers. If the waves overtake you, then your shift is over, and you have to start back at square one. Quick note, my editor, who is my sister, because I cannot afford an actual editor, pointed out that this seems like a circle of hell in and of itself, with the never-ending restarts of shifts, which might be intentional. So, everyone, thank Rachel, because she's cool, and I don't pay her. You cannot save at any point during a shift, and you cannot carry over anything between shifts. However, you do make cash from shifts that is not lost if you lose, and you can use that cash to buy more cards for your deck. Furthermore, there are these sort of in-game achievements in Heretic's Fork, that if you complete them, you get another card added to your deck. And even if you fail a shift, any progress you made on an achievement is still marked. So if an achievement is to punish 1,000 sinners, and I failed a shift, but I punished 100 sinners during that shift, then I would be 100 sinners closer to that achievement. There is meta progression in Heretic's Fork. As with each shift, you are making progress by getting more cash and progress in achievements, which means you are getting more cards to use for the next shift. And so you may start out your next shift in the same place, you do have some progress from the last run marked by the new cards that you have. The game Hades also has meta progression. With each run, you carry over darkness crystals to upgrade Zagreus, nectar and ambrosia to further your relationships with the other characters, gemstones to upgrade the House of Hades, keys to unlock other weapons to use, and Titan blood to upgrade those weapons. With each run, Zagreus gets stronger, but most interestingly, the House of Hades changes and the story progresses. With each death, you're taken back to the House of Hades, but now there are new conversations to be had with the denizens of the house, which will progress the story of the game. So even if you fail an escape attempt, you have progress made and marked with not only upgrades to your character and armaments, but also in your relationships and the overall story. This shows that your attempts to escape hell are having an effect on the House of Hades and the people in it. You're progressing in another way. How Hades ties its in-game progression with story progression is just really cool. Another interesting thing about Hades is that it has autosaving. Hell is split into multiple areas, each with their own set of rooms. Each time you enter a new room, the game would autosave, marking your progress in a run, so you could quit the game and come back to it mid-run. Autosaving is interesting in that the game marks your progress itself, rather than the player marking their progress themselves. Most games have it just for the sake of convenience, to keep a periodic log of the player's progress in case the player dies or leaves the game, but they have not manually saved in a while. Then the player probably doesn't lose much because the game marked their progress for them. However, there is a game I have played that used autosaving for more than just convenience. Citizen Sleeper is a CRPG in which you play as a sleeper, an android with an emulated consciousness who has escaped the company that owns you. You wake up in a far-off space station after you stowed away on a ship. I'm not going to give any spoilers about this game's story because it's obviously very story-heavy, and I highly recommend you see it for yourself, as this game has a beautiful story that is so well written. So please check it out if CRPGs or games where your choices matter are your thing. What I will talk about is how this game saves. Throughout Citizen Sleeper, you will be talking to other characters and making decisions. This game will autosave after every interaction and decision you make. However, this is more than just for convenience. There is no way to load prior saves, only the most recent one. So, if you make a decision, it saves, overwriting the last save, so you can't go back to before that decision. In this game, autosaving is more than just a convenience. It's a way for the game to mark the player's progress, most importantly, their decisions, and hold them to it. They cannot go back. They can only go forward. In this game, your choices really matter. This makes for a much different experience when compared to other RPGs that do allow you to go back. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game with a lot of dice rolls and dialogue choices that will result in different outcomes. My playthrough was very different from my friend's playthrough. Like, one of us had hot sex with Halsin as a bear, and the other was my friend. However, you can go back and undo things. You can have many saves, plus you can quick save and quick load at almost any time. You're about to make a dice roll and you want to be sure that you succeed? Then just quick save, and if you don't succeed, then just quick load and re-roll. This is called save scumming. It is the act of saving right before important and impactful decisions, so that you can simply redo them if they don't go how you want. Now, this is something that I've heard people say is perfectly fine to do, and others have said it ruins the experience and the game. Should a player be allowed to go back and undo their progress so that they can progress in a different way? Does it make for a worse experience? I would like to think that it doesn't make for a worse experience, just a different one. I save scummed when playing Baldur's Gate 3, because I wanted things to go exactly how I wanted them to. This didn't make my time with the game worse. I loved my time with the game and being able to see other possible outcomes and paths, while still being able to go back to the path I want. I loved the free experience this game's save system allowed. But I also loved my time with Citizen Sleeper. Not being able to go back on my decisions really made them feel more impactful. Citizen Sleeper's save system was different because it was more restrictive, holding players to their path of progress. But that doesn't make it better or worse, just different. I mean, this has been what this whole video's been about, that games have different save systems that allow for new and different experiences. And just because one is different than the other, doesn't mean one is better than the other. Some people can like both, and some people may be more preferential to one, and that's okay. Certain experiences just are and aren't for certain people. It would be ludicrous to think everyone likes everything. Fuck no, we all have our preferences, and that's okay. But I can still recommend you to be curious. Look at games you may not normally play. Try them, and see how their save systems shape how you play. Hey howdy, thanks for watching. A YouTuber I watched called Design Doc made a video on save systems in games. I highly recommend you watch that video if you haven't already, because 1, Design Doc makes good stuff, and 2, he talks about a lot of stuff that I don't talk about. So if you're looking for some more ramblings on save systems in games, go check out his video. And check out his channel if you like game design. Links in the description. Also tell me about games you've played with interesting save systems down in the comments, as obviously I have not played every single game in existence, and would love to hear about other save systems that have shaped your experiences with games. Okay, that's all. Back into my hole I crawl to tackle my ever-increasing Steam backlog, and by that I mean just play Final Fantasy XIV for the whole day. Bye bye.